A man at a family dinner said, once in passing, what he had been paid that year. Nobody had pried. Somebody asked, and he answered the way you answer a question about the weather. Plates kept moving. Conversation kept going. Something at that table changed anyway, quietly, in a way nobody named out loud, and it never changed back. There is an old Taoist line about a sage who goes about in a coat of coarse cloth with a piece of jade carried inside it. Everyone who passes him sees the cloth. Nobody sees the jade. Sitting inside that image is one of the least comfortable ideas in the whole tradition, and I would put it this way. A thing you have and a thing that has been seen are two different objects, and only one of them is still entirely yours. I want to stay at that dinner table for a while, because most of us were raised on the opposite instruction. Hiding is shameful. Honest people have nothing to conceal. If you are doing well, let the people who love you share in it. And if you are struggling, let them help. Real truth lives in all of that. And none of what follows is an argument for becoming secretive with people who have earned your trust. Think back to the last time you told someone good news. Not bad news, which behaves differently. Good news. A number. Some door that finally opened. A scan that came back clean. Word from a person who at long last said yes. Watch what happened in the 4 or 5 seconds after the words left you. Something crossed the other person's face and then arranged itself. Almost always, what arranged itself was kindness. Almost always, something crossed first. That crossing is not a flaw in your friend. It is older than your friend and older than you. Look at the ordinary shapes this takes. You mentioned that you finally paid the last of it off, and within a month there is a conversation about a loan. Or you mention that you have been sleeping again, that the worst of it seems to be behind you, and the check-ins that used to come every few days begin to thin out, because everyone reasonably concluded you no longer needed them. You mention that you are thinking of moving, of selling the house, of starting the thing you have circled for 6 years, and 3 people who love you begin, immediately and sincerely, to help you think about it more carefully. Every one of them means well. Every one of them now has a hand somewhere near the wheel. There is a gentler version of this that almost nobody notices. You keep a small practice going for a year, alone. Reading in the morning, or walking the same route, or writing something nobody will read. It belongs to you completely, and it holds you up on days when nothing else does. Then you mention it at a table, and someone asks how it is going, and they mean it warmly. And now there is a progress report where there used to be a walk. Nobody did anything to you. The thing simply acquired an audience, and things behave differently once an audience is in the room. There is the cost, and notice how small it is. Nobody betrayed anybody. What happened is only this. Once a thing has been seen, it enters a room where other people also get a vote. Lao Tzu puts this near the end of the Tao Te Ching, in the 70th chapter, and he puts it almost as a complaint. James Legge renders the opening of it this way. My words are very easy to know, and very easy to practice, but there is no one in the world who is able to know and able to practice them. Those who know me are few. Then comes the line itself. Therefore, the sage wears a poor garb of haircloth, while he carries his jade in his bosom. 4 characters carry that ending in the Chinese. Bei He Huai Yu. Wearing the rough garment, holding the jade. Most translators reach for the word humility here, and I think that reading costs us the whole point. Humility describes how you feel about your own worth. Nothing in that line is about feeling. The sage is not modest regarding the jade. He knows precisely what it is worth, which is exactly why it rides on the inside of the coat. Taoist writers were never sentimental about people. For centuries they watched what happens to anything that becomes visible and desirable at the same moment. The straight tree gets cut first. A full cup is the one that spills. Fame draws a court, and a court draws knives. In that tradition, concealment belongs to the family of care, sitting closer to how you handle something fragile than to how you handle something shameful. You do not leave the thing you love out in the open in a world that has hands. Psychologists spent a long time treating envy as one thing, and it behaved strangely in their data. Sometimes it made people work harder. Sometimes it made them cruel. In 2009, a Dutch researcher named Niels van de Ven, working at Tilburg University alongside Marcel Zeelenberg and Pieters, published a paper in the journal Emotion under the title Leveling Up and Down. They asked people to describe, in close detail, what envy actually feels like from the inside. What came back was two emotions rather than one, with different textures and different pulls. Benign envy, they called the first. You see what someone has, and the pull runs upward, toward the thing itself. Uncomfortable, and also motivating. You want what they have, so you go looking for a route to it. Malicious envy was the second. Same trigger, opposite vector. The pull runs down toward the person, and relief arrives at the moment they drop, never at the moment you rise. Let me be careful, because this is a finding about how two emotions are experienced, not proof that everyone around you is waiting to sabotage you. Most of what you will meet is the benign kind, or plain gladness, which the study is not about at all. But the second thing is real. It is not rare. No amount of lecturing dissolves it. And the only input it reliably requires is visibility, because it cannot form around something it does not know is there. There is a lake in Russia where all of this was worked out a long time ago, in the only language people had for it. Old believers tell a legend about a city called Kitezh. Let me say plainly that it is a legend, and a late one. The story first appears in print, in an anonymous book from the end of the 1700s, now called the Kitezh Chronicle, describing events it places some 5 centuries earlier. Folklore, then. Not history, and I will not dress it up as history. In the telling, a prince builds a city on the shore of a lake called Svetloyar. White stone, gold on the church domes, bells carrying out across the water on still evenings. Then the Mongol armies come sweeping over the land, taking whatever they find, and word reaches them that beside a lake stands a city worth taking. Kitezh does not fortify. No army is raised, no walls thickened. According to the legend, the people pray, and the lake rises, and the city goes under whole. Still standing, still ringing. When the army arrives at the shore, it finds water, and trees around the water, and nothing to carry away. Here is what keeps the story alive after 8 generations. Nobody in the legend calls Kitezh destroyed. The tradition insists it continues. Down there, the bells go on, and on quiet days, people at the water's edge claim to hear them. And the old telling adds that only a certain kind of person hears anything at all. That story did not survive because Russians enjoyed tales about drowned real estate. It survived because it names something people recognize and cannot say directly, which is that certain things stay whole only by going where they cannot be seen. Nothing was surrendered. Nothing was lost. Submerged, and still ringing, and no longer available for the taking. A city can hide what it has. A person has the harder problem, which is hiding what he can do. Tibet remembers a man called Milarepa, who lived, as far as anyone can date him, in the 1000s and the early 1100s. The life of him that everybody reads was set down by a writer called Tsangnon Haruka around 1488, roughly 400 years after the fact, and it is a devotional biography, so the miracles in it are doing a job that has little to do with the historical record. The shape of the life is old and consistent, though, and the shape is what concerns us. His nickname carries it, Repa, the Cotton-Clad. He spent his years in caves wearing a single thin cotton cloth, in a climate that does not forgive that choice, and the stories say he lived on nettles until his skin took on a green cast from them. By every account, this was a man who had arrived somewhere. He had done the work. He held what his tradition counted as real attainment, none of which he displayed. Scholars meet him on the road and take him for a beggar, and he lets them. Students sit with him a long time before working out who they have been sitting with. He sang when there was reason to sing, and answered questions when they were asked. Otherwise, he walked around Tibet in a cotton rag, with the whole of it on the inside, which is Behi Huayu almost word for word, in a country that had never read the Tao Te Ching. Picture the arithmetic of that for a moment. Every single day he had the option of being recognized. A sentence would have done it. One line about where he had studied, one demonstration, one correction of a scholar who had it wrong, and the road would have rearranged itself around him. Meals would have improved. Doors would have opened. He would also, from that morning onward, have belonged to whoever was watching, and every hour after would have had an audience sitting in it. He kept choosing the rag. Not out of dislike for people, by all accounts, since the stories show him surrounded by them. He kept choosing it because what he was carrying could not survive being handled. Two traditions with no way of reaching each other, arriving at the same instruction, and neither one arriving at it out of fear. In both cases, the hiding is simply the only method anybody ever found that works. All of which leaves the question of what you are supposed to do on a Thursday. Becoming guarded is not the answer, because guarded people are exhausting to love and they usually protect the wrong things anyway. The practice is much smaller, and you can begin it this week. It is a pause. That is the entire technique. Between the moment something good becomes true and the moment you tell someone, put distance. Not forever. A week. Often a day does it. Use the pause for one question. And the question is not whether you can trust the person. That framing is a trap because the answer is usually yes, and it is usually beside the point. Ask instead, does this person need the information in order to do something, or in order to have a feeling about me? Both are legitimate. Your sister may well deserve the feeling. Your accountant needs the information. Most of what we announce, though, is neither. Most of what we announce goes out because the good thing did not feel fully real to us until somebody else confirmed it. And that is the precise mechanism the old line warns against. If a thing only becomes yours once it has been witnessed, it was never quite yours. It was on loan from the room. Something else happens inside the pause, and it is worth naming. Telling people about a decision hands you a small, immediate reward that feels a great deal like having acted. The congratulations land. The nodding happens. Some appetite in you gets fed, and what it was hungry for was the doing, not the telling. Holding the thing quiet leaves that appetite unfed, which is uncomfortable for a few days, and then starts working for you. Look back at the plans you announced most loudly, and see how many of them you actually began. The Taoist claim runs harder than that. Witnessing adds nothing. The number is the same number. Your recovery is the same recovery. The plan is the same plan. What witnessing brings into the picture is other people's votes, other people's timing. And now and then that thing that crosses a face before the kindness arrives. Try it once. Keep one true good thing entirely to yourself for 7 days. Not a secret you are ashamed of. Something clean, something that went well. Watch what happens to it while nobody looks at it. What I would expect you to find, and what the old line predicts, is that it grows heavier and quieter, and more solidly yours, and that some part of you which had been waiting for permission quietly stops waiting. Let me go back to the man at the dinner table because I have been unfair to him. He did nothing wrong. Somebody asked, he told the truth, and telling the truth is never the mistake. Blame does not attach to anyone at that table, including him. What happened there was simply what happens when a piece of jade comes out from inside a coat and sits on a tablecloth under a light, where everyone can see it, and everyone can form an opinion about it, and nobody, from that evening forward, can quite unsee it. The coarse coat is the part I would ask you to carry out of here. Notice that it is not a disguise. That sage on the road is not performing poverty for an audience. He is wearing what the road requires and keeping the valuable thing where the road cannot reach it. And the distance between those two acts is the distance between a life you are staging and a life you are actually living. Somewhere under a lake, they say, the bells are still ringing. Nobody took that city, and defenses had nothing to do with it. When the army finally reached the shore, there was simply nothing there to want. If any of this reached the place it was meant to reach, do me one small kindness and tap the like button. It genuinely helps this find the next person, and there are more of them out there than either of us would guess. And I would really like to know, so tell me in the comments about the good thing you are going to keep to yourself for the next 7 days. Naming it out loud, even here, even among strangers, has a way of making the decision real. And if you would like to keep walking these quiet ideas with me, then subscribe and stay a while, because the ones who walk softly tend to walk the furthest. Let's keep walking it together. I'll see you in the next one.